So my name's Alex, and this is Josh, who's one of my colleagues of ours. So as Candace says, we're here to talk about the youth today. So in terms of, there's a lot of terms given to this audience. So Generation Z, Gen Edge, digital natives, and plurals.
I think the key point we want to make here is that it doesn't really matter what you call them. Lots of agencies try to own a definition, maybe for a sort of educated purpose or to market themselves, but really it's about understanding the audience and how they change over time. Young teens to young adults, this is who we're talking about. They've grown up with digital. That's why digital natives is probably one of my favourite terms, if we have to choose.
So at H&K we work, as Candace mentioned, with a host of different brands who are kind of targeting this audience. One being Adidas, as mentioned by Helen earlier. So our work on Adidas is all kind of looking after their publishing needs across their specific sports performance categories. Then we come on to the cheeky soft drink that is Tango. So our role on Tango is their social content and their distribution of this content. And then we come on to Gillette, where kind of our role here is to kind of develop and execute their influencer strategy. So from working with these brands, what do we already know about them? Guess what? They're on mobile. It seems to come up in every presentation when you talk about youth, but obviously they are. They share loads of content all over the place. Peer currency is everything to them, but nowadays they're influenced by everything. So not just a traditional celebrity, but their friends, their family, brands, and more kind of, obviously, the guys from YouTube as well in terms of the influence these guys now have on different people. Oops. We've gone. I think we've lost the page. There we are. Back.
Cool. But what else do we know? So we're treating what was on the previous slide today as base, as a bit of a given, and we want to share general insights and learnings from the work that we do with you today. Things that we think are happening now, but also a look to the future as well. They're hard to get to know. Some of you may think, shouldn't this be on the last slide? It seems obvious. We think it's often overlooked and people move into creating and publishing too quickly. The question, how well do you really know your audience? If you're publishing every day, particularly if it's young people who are interesting and complex, they change. It's really important to go beyond focus groups to get into the environment of where your youth audience is and have regular conversations with them. We'd recommend not to start publishing until you can confidently answer this question, and keep asking yourself it over time as well, because like no other demographic, they change rapidly. We worked on Adidas Unlock the Game as an example of this, where to get an understanding of their language and the language they use in relation to grassroots football, we went down across football pitches in London to have conversations really and involve them from the start. And that's just an example that sort of brings that to life perhaps.
We know as well they want to be entertained even. Now they're looking at brands to entertain them. It's more than just conversations now. They're looking for the best experiences that they can't create themselves, that they're looking for brands to create. So the question to yourselves is, what experience can you create to allow them to share their own stories? A couple of brands who are doing it really well at the moment is obviously O2 and their Priority Moments, giving everyday experiences to people. And then a campaign we worked on last summer called Intel Comedy Club in terms of giving kind of audiences the chance to be a stand-up comedian.
Fandom is a core driver, but the nature of fandom has changed. A young person's idol is no longer the traditional celebrity. It could be someone in their classroom. It could be someone in this room. I think the point is that they want interaction. They want an intimate relationship with the people they follow, and it determines what they consume, what they watch, what they share. A question for your brand is how you can try and encourage this relationship to exist, this intimacy. A bit of a summary, a takeout: consumers lead, not brands anymore, but brands can still influence. So that's a question to how you might do that.
As Josh said, fandom is the core driver. However, as the slide kind of points to, loyalty with this age group is very fragile at the moment in terms of they change their topics, their tastes, their understanding of different brands all the time. They're not they're not scared at all to change from one day to the other. So you've got to question yourselves in terms of why will they stay with your brand? What value are you adding? Where is your brand available, your product available? And also, how can you start influencing their influencers to actually get them to start coming back to your brand?
They live in the moment more than ever before. Young people live in the here and now. This was definitely resonating in Helen from Twitter's presentation. It is about moments. You have to be responsive, move quickly, and if you can, process in real time. We see a lot of people publishing with a fair delay after certain events. We'd recommend if you're too late, then it's not worth bothering. The comms won't be effective. It's better to put that kind of time to planning the next event and seizing the next opportunity. We work a lot with a model of planned reactive where you can anticipate things happening, and reactive where you just don't know, but you can still prep yourself with your team, with your process. That model can help, and we can talk a bit more about that afterwards. We executed it quite well during the World Cup. You can see on the screen, whenever there was an all-in or nothing moment for Adidas, that was their brand positioning, their point of view, we recreated it as a unique piece of artwork on their Instagram feed, and that really helped Adidas own the moments in a fresh way. We produced it so rapidly that we could get it out, and it was still very much part of the conversation.
Again, another obvious point here, but they are everywhere. Yes, they're online, they're using mobile devices all of the time, but remember, they are offline as well all the time. So make sure your marketing plan has a mix of different kind of channels you're kind of aiming at. A good example here is with Tango last year. We did the partnership with Anchorman. We've got about 800,000 from a social following at the moment. But with obviously Facebook and Twitter, the streams of information that's coming, we wanted to kind of try a new approach to kind of get this information to these people kind of when they've got their full concentration. So that's when we launched our Snapchat channel that worked really, really well in terms of driving it. We had their full attention, and we've rolled that out since.
Entrepreneurial. This is it's a recent one that we've definitely noticed, and we see it as a really interesting future trend. Austerity and creative democracy, an example being YouTube in its simplest form as a creator platform, are examples of how young people are pushed and enabled to do more for themselves. They now create their own brands, they create their own content, so they understand brands and marketing like no other generation. We think this presents an opportunity, really, of how brands can support young people to achieve their goals, their dreams, and maybe that's going to be part of more people's content or communications, whatever we call it, in years to come. An example of someone who's very much kicked off this trend was Jamal Edwards, who owns SBTV, a YouTube platform, created about 5 years ago. It's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and he's turned it into something that's everywhere, as Alex was suggesting. So he's an example of someone who's given young people the kind of the example to follow.
And then self-teaching. I think this is something that's kind of an insight we've pulled recently, probably over the last 6 months, about the audience. They're obviously teaching themselves a lot more these days. 5 years ago, if someone wanted to learn to play the guitar, Yellow Pages, find an instructor, go down face-to-face session. These guys now are empowering themselves to educate themselves. They're building their skill sets as they go. So again, how can your brand play a role in this? How can you kind of get in these search terms? An example here is Gillette in terms of their how to shave video. So when you search for kind of how to shave, it's the second most searched video at the moment with like 1.6 million views.
Be genuinely something. Whatever you do, don't be lukewarm. Young people like extremes. This is something that we especially see on social, and many brands don't quite do enough to pique interest. Determine your brand's point of view, your tone of voice, and then challenge every piece of content you create against it. Does it really push it? Is it really going to be genuinely funny? Is it going to be genuinely spectacular? That critique will help your comms to be more effective. We see lots of great examples in this space for young people. The Sport Bible is one that I know Alex and I consume a lot. It's a channel that's grown rapidly over recent months, and it does so because it has a filter of funny, and its point of view on football events or all sporting events is so strong and so refined. It actually doesn't really require much paid spend to get its content seen by young people. They actually share it so much that most people will comment their friends' handles underneath a piece of content just to share it. It gets thousands and thousands of shares. So it's an example of be genuinely something.
And then our final point is around collaboration. This is key. This audience really want to collaborate. They're collaborating with themselves. They're also keen to collaborate with brands. There's definitely guidelines to working with them in terms of they want to protect their own brands they're building online at the moment. So how do you work with them? Kind of give them different experiences as well. So in terms of from the collaborate point of view, by collaborating with different people, it'll give you drive credibility in terms of what you're going to be doing. It'll also drive your reach as well in terms of to their audience as well. So a couple of brands who are kind of really doing this well at the moment is NCS and their YouTube strategy in terms of bringing in presenters to present for them on their channels. Mercedes with Instagram and their program about kind of following people's journeys. And then also a campaign we run in the summer for Adidas Running in terms of From Where I Run, a very UGC-driven program. So in a nutshell, if we were to kind of say take 5 things away from listening to us ramble for 10 minutes, it would be know your audience. I think, as Josh mentioned, it's very important to take them out of the focus groups. I think there's a lot of time we're doing focus groups with 6 people here, 6 people there, and we're kind of saying, this is how they speak. Take them into their natural environment, go down and listen to them. What's the language they're using? How are they speaking to each other? What are they wearing? How are they behaving? You'll get so much more out of it taking it from their environment.
Be entertaining with your own point of view. Once you've determined whether you want to be funny, whether you want to be interesting, whether you want to be useful, challenge yourself to make sure it's genuinely entertaining every time so that you're not just pushing, you're actually encouraging young people to consume your content because it's really relevant to them.
And then be quick with your responses, whether, again, it's a consumer service question, whether it's to a real-time event, and also if you've missed it, you've missed it. Just kind of plan for next time.
Consumers lead, not brands. As we've said, we think this is a really interesting point, but brands can still influence. So the dynamics just shifted slightly.
And then final point, help them achieve. These guys are growing as individuals. They're experiencing lots of different things between this age group. How do we help them on their way? What role does your brand play to kind of help them achieve their goals and their dreams? That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, not quite it, because we'll give the audience a chance to ask a question. Okay, Nick.
Thanks. What are they worrying about?
What are they worrying about?
Yeah.
I think peer groups, peer pressure is definitely something that's a big worry and a driver of what they do, how they interact, peer pressure. I think stress, but related to particular points in their circumstance, exam stress as a specific. I think it's stress, but contextual. Yeah, I guess in answer to your question, it's slightly broad, but peer pressure is a kind of driver of what they may share, what they may worry about, what they may do. The peer influence is huge.
I think just to add to that, I think it's about them identifying who they are as people. I think with social nowadays, you can build a personality on social that goes out to a completely different audience than what you are in real life. So I think a part of it is about they're probably worrying a little bit more about who they are as a person, what their identity is, who they're friends with, what brands they like. Do they like this brand? Do I follow this person? So I think there's probably a bit of an identity crisis with them when they're going through this kind of period, and they're very much up for experimenting, new friends, new brands, new experiences.
One more.
Daniel Fisher. When a brand joins a platform like Vine or Snapchat, is that the beginning of the end for that platform, for the people that use it the most?
Ooh, got to be careful what we say here. No, I think has to be the answer. I think there's plenty of examples that of brands doing it really well, and those we should look at those and understand how they're using best practice to get the most out of the platform. I'd say generally it's because they're producing content that is native to the platform. So it chimes with why that platform was created by its owner. Yeah, I think optimistically, no. There's good examples. It's just about brands setting a high benchmark and looking to kind of, I guess, copy the good stuff from their own point of view.
I think as well, collaborations as well will help with that in terms of taking the credible people on that platform at the moment and working with them, whether it's kind of from a white label point of view to kind of understand how that platform's working to kind of get best in class, I think.
Okay, thank you guys so much. That was awesome.
Thanks, everyone.